We continue our journey through the set of 7 introductory clips on God's design for sexual relationship, hoping to give an overview of this very magnificent and broad topic in a way that enables you to make right decisions that lead to life and peace and love and joy. Having looked at God's design for sexuality in general, we now look at God's design for marriage specifically, the relationship that God has made for the expression of sexual intimacy. When Jesus was asked questions about marriage, he would refer back to the Genesis account. And we read one of these examples here in Matthew 19, verse 4. Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother, and be united to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. Jesus' default reference on marriage was Genesis 2:24. And we'll look at that very briefly now. The 5 pillars of those words through that verse that define God's design for marriage. Firstly, a man. Secondly, shall leave. Thirdly, be united. Fourthly, to his wife. And fifthly, become one flesh. A man. It is the design of God for marriage that a man should take primary responsibility for the establishment of every new family. That it is the man who is responsible to care for, to nurture, to create a context and an environment for the thriving of family. We were to see this in the very next chapter in Genesis, where Eve took the fruit and ate. Adam, although didn't eat first, was present and had been commissioned by God to have responsibility in the garden, and was called by God firstly to give an account. And the truth is that Adam and Eve have equal standing before God, equal value in the eyes of God, and yet in the wisdom of God, he calls man to give an account first. And then Eve has to give her account as well. And this is important for us to embrace in a world where men so easily abdicate and renege on responsibility and don't want to step up and take the cost and the sacrifice that's involved in really establishing a family. Next up, leaves his father and mother. This is important to understand, that the man is not in the design of God to move into the further parts of the expression of sexual intimacy until he is able to leave his father and mother, able to provide practically for his family as well as emotionally and spiritually for his family. He should be mature and able to care for those into whose hands God is entrusting new lives. And then thirdly, unites. And this is a very important word. It's not the same as one flesh. It's referring to that relational commitment. And that commitment at a heart level between the two that are being joined, but also at a community level. A father and mother have been left and give assent to that. And he's united to his wife and no doubt her family to give assent to that. And so this is not only commitment in the heart, but it is covenant in community, or the presence of community. And even if you get married in a magistrate's court, you will need witnesses to attest that. And vows are made very often before God and man. That is the formation of covenant, and it is designed to be forever. It is designed to be for life. The scripture calls it, what God has joined together, let no man separate. And very often in our marriage ceremonies, we will repeat words such as, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. It's not for better, for richer, for healthier, as long as we feel like it. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. That is the spirit of, the sense of commitment that God is requiring. And then this all-important word, his wife. And this is the woman's role in this, that she is an active participant, accepts his willingness, and enters into this covenant. And then become one flesh. And that's the sexual union, the physical intimacy, the consummation of marriage. And that beautiful design by God is given for our best, for our blessing, and for the blessing of the children and generations after, and community around us. And it's just like fire. Sexual intimacy is very like fire. It can be so warm, it can be so life-giving, it can be so nurturing, but in the wrong context, just like a fire out of a fireplace lit anywhere in the house, can result in such destruction and such pain. And sadly, that pain often comes as we, in our human wisdom, mix the persons or the processes of God's design for marriage. The persons, that it's a man leaving his father and mother and uniting to his wife, that one man, one woman in the presence of their families. Where we mix those persons up, we can encounter a lot of pain. And where we mix the processes up, where we put one flesh out of sync with the covenant, for example, or where we are not mature enough to leave and provide and yet move on with some of this covenant and one flesh. The mixing of the people and the processes can lead to unimaginable pain. And yet God's design is for unimaginable pleasure and peace in his Spirit. I pray that God would help you to know how to make decisions in your life in this area that would lead to not only your blessing and the blessing of your family, but the blessing of communities around you.